Welcome everyone to our CMX webinar interview with Ryan Paugh. We're going to give everyone a second here to roll in. Excited to have everyone here, and we're going to have a lot of fun over the next hour. As everyone's getting settled in, I see we have people already showing up. Cool. So I'm David Spinks. I'm the CEO of CMX. If you're not familiar with CMX before showing up to this webinar, we are a training and membership platform for community professionals. So we live and breathe community. We try to find the greatest community builders in the world and bring together their perspectives and share their learnings with anybody who's building community for a living. So that makes us extremely excited to have someone that I've known for like close to a decade.
At least, man.
I think we got the Facebook reminder that like we became Facebook friends 8 years ago. And, like, did that with this silly video. So we'll just call it. We'll round up to a decade.
Let's do it. Yeah, that's fair.
And so, yeah, I'm extremely excited to be able to do this. It's taken us way too long to do this. And I think we're going to need to do like 3 more of these because there's no way we're going to cover everything that we want to here.
Yeah.
But so Ryan and I have known each other for a long time, and we kind of came up in the community industry together. When we both started out, there wasn't a community industry. It didn't have a name. There were no guides on how to do this stuff. There was no CMX. There was no the community company who specialized in doing this stuff. And so we supported each other and went to conferences together to learn and took silly photos that Ryan shared one of them to promote this, webinar, but apparently a lot of them aren't. He's not able to find, which I think is a good thing.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
And so, yeah, really, really excited. So Ryan, we met originally when he co-founded Brazen Careerist, was around the time that we met. I was also running a community called U30 Pro around that time. And both of them were kind of focused on helping people with their careers and helping them navigate kind of personal branding and creating a lot of content and building communities around that. And then Ryan went on to co-found the YEC, the Young Entrepreneur Council, an amazing community of entrepreneurs that I've been fortunate to be a part of since the beginning. That's the benefit of spending 10 years with each other. You get like first dibs on the new communities. And YEC expanded into the community company, which has now launched communities for companies like Forbes and Men's Health. And so they've basically taken their formula for how to build these membership communities and figure out how to make it repeatable and basically create some structure around how to launch communities for these brands, which we'll dig into and is really exciting. And then even more exciting is that Ryan just published a book with his co-founder, Scott Gerber, called Superconnector, all about how the greatest, there it is, he was ready, all about how the greatest networkers and community builders in the world get it done. The only downside of the book is they chose to include an interview with me in there.
Yeah.
So like you can just skip that section. But aside from that, it's all really good. Yeah, how's that for an intro? I feel like I know your whole life story.
That was great. I mean, it's been a crazy 10 years just, hearing all that background, man. We've been through a lot, and it's exciting to be able to share some of that knowledge that we both kind of gained through that experience with, all the people that you've brought together through CMX. I'm grateful to be a part of that myself and just to learn and grow from everyone that's in there. So it's cool to be talking to you and have this opportunity to give back and share my experiences. It'll be a really fun hour. So
awesome. Cool. Well, let's take advantage of our time and we'll start diving in. Before we do, a couple quick things. One, if you have any questions, just plug them into the Q&A section here, and we're definitely going to open up at the end for questions. And if you submit one that's pretty relevant to the current conversation and we see it, we'll go ahead and plug that in right away. So please go ahead and contribute. We want to make sure to get your questions answered as well. This webinar will be recorded, so if you have to run to the bathroom or you're only passively listening to us right now, it's okay. I could see you. It's okay. You don't have to pay full attention. The recording will be available for you. And then a couple quick things we're going to do here. One is Ryan was generous enough to offer to give away 5 of those amazing Superconnector books to people hearing this webinar. So throughout this webinar, if you tweet out with a hashtag Superconnector, any of the insights that you learn from here, anything that comes to mind, anything you want to share, just use a hashtag Superconnector, and we're going to select 5 of you. We'll follow up on the email because you registered for the webinar. We should have your email. We'll follow up on the email and we'll get your address so we can send you a free book. And then on the CMX side, if you're not familiar with CMX Pro, that is our membership program. We do interviews kind of like this one twice a month. We release all of our educational models and trainings, and we have close to 200 members, all community professionals from the top businesses in the world. It's a really incredible group. And we're offering the first month for only $5 for anyone who's here at this webinar. So if you apply to join in the next week, in the next 7 days, and you mentioned this webinar that you came here, you will get the first month for $5 instead of $31, which it usually is. So you get a chance to try out the community and experience it for yourself. And that is the last promotions you'll hear. The rest of it's all going to be the deep dive on the good community stuff. You ready? You good, Ryan?
Let's do it, man. I'm ready.
Right. So we will start really high level, and as we go into it, we'll get more into the nitty gritty and details, and I'll try to pull the real good stuff out of you. But high level, I'd love to hear your definition of community, and then specifically, I saw you just published an article with our friend Sujin about the difference between networking and community building.
Yes.
And so how do you define community, and how is that distinguished from networking?
Sure. So first off, the definition, I like to take a similar approach to you and just keep it stupid simple. And I've read your definitions, and I think we kind of see things the same way. I think it gets dangerous when you try to over-define things. So for me, community is just any group of people with something in common. We all have these circles of community all around us, from our neighbors across the street to the groups that we associate on Facebook, to the people we went to college with, to our family, to our coworkers. And really they're just groups of people that have something in common. And, it's really how you leverage those groups and how you support them that really defines how massively impactful community can be in your life. But, we try not to get too caught up in the weeds and what community is beyond just that stupid, simple answer. Community is a group of people with something in common. And I think good community builders figure out how to connect the dots and make the relationships within that community work better. And that's a good segue into, I think, the difference between networking and community building. In the book, we try to get away from the word networking because, frankly, I think we've sort of bastardized that over the last 10 plus years. It's become this sort of transactional approach. And, for me, I just visualize this guy or girl at that conference that you go to who's just doling out business cards left and right, even before you get to talk to them. And, you start having a conversation and you can tell they're already looking over your shoulder at the next person that they're going to go talk to and barely even listening to what you're saying. And I think that's why all of us have really started to start hating the word networking. So in the book, we don't talk about networking at all. We talk about connecting. And I think being able to connect people and to the right resources and the right other individuals is sort of like a fundamental trait of great community builders. They know how to connect people to the right resources and the right other human beings that they need in order to find success and find satisfaction in being a part of that group. So, make sense?
Yep, that makes sense. And so what made you write Superconnector, and how did you kind of select the right people there? I know a lot of them are kind of like, they're like great networkers.
Yeah.
And so kind of what was the inspiration for the book, and what did you want to communicate through it?
Yeah. Scott, my business partner and I, and co-author of the book, we spent around 10 years together, working with organizations and individuals on building stronger community. And most of us get it wrong. Things like social media, for example, have been a blessing and a curse. We're more connected than ever before, and capable of just, more knowledge share and more relationship building. Case in point, us talking right now on separate coasts. Through writing the book, I've done podcasts with people around the world. But most people are still using the great technology we have at our disposal to just get one-sided value, to get transactional kind of things done, and not really thinking about the other person. The people who we highlighted in the book, people like yourself, Jason Gagnard, Steve Sims, are all individuals who have figured out how to crack the code of making technology and making social media and all of these great tools that we have into something better, into something that truly builds meaningful relationships that have mutual value associated with them. And that is who we try to showcase in the book. We believe that anyone can be a super connector. Anyone can do this. It doesn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert, an entrepreneur, a CEO, or just entering the workforce for the first time. You can become a super connector and adopt these strategies. They're not one size fits all, but these are the people who we believe are the ones that you should get inspired from and learn from in order to apply the techniques that seem that they would fit into your life in a meaningful way. And then to start being able to build more relationships in the way you should be building them versus the old transactional way that so many people unfortunately have just fallen in the trap of doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there specific themes or techniques that came out of the book that can give everyone kind of like the very high level overview of what they learned in it, and what are the things that you took away from these super connectors?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, this book is not gospel. And I mentioned before that, you should take inspiration from these people, not try to emulate them, in the exact same way that they're doing things. I think what's important for anyone that wants to be a better connector and a better community builder is self-awareness. That's at the core. I think a lot of people think that it starts with understanding other people. At the end of the day, it starts with better understanding yourself, understanding where you thrive. More importantly than that, though, where you suck and the types of things that you shouldn't be doing. So really kind of spending the time asking yourselves key questions that'll get you to understand your strengths and weaknesses, and where you're really great and where you're flawed is going to help you build better relationships, make more meaningful connections, and ultimately, I think, become a better community builder and connector that, can create relationships that have mutual value associated with them.
Okay, so it sounds a little bit like there's the angle of authenticity, of being aware of your own flaws and being open about that.
Yeah, but again, before you can build a strategy on a more practical level, like, you have to know what strategies are going to work for you. I think like, go back to the introvert extrovert example for a minute. I think a lot of people get caught up, or at least from my conversations around the book, and thinking that these are strategies that are solely for the extroverts, the lives of the party, the people that can walk into any room and talk to anyone. When in fact, I'm finding that my favorite connectors that we've interviewed in the book, and the people who are the best community builders, they tend to be more introverted, actually. And I think that they have a lot of skills that allow them to inherently be great at that. But they need to find ways to connect with folks that don't create anxiety and create, experiences that don't bring out the best in you. For example, like, you're never going to find me at a crowded conference. You might find me, at a bar where I create an oasis to interact with people in a more meaningful level, 5 blocks away, and in a more, casual setting, away from the elbow to elbow insanity. But I know that doesn't work for me. I know that I shouldn't be there. I know that I'm not going to give my best self in those types of situations. And instead, I decided that I would break the rules, that I would do things in a way that allowed me to connect at these great opportunities to meet people, but outside of the confines of the chaos that just doesn't fit someone like me, who's an introvert at heart. So again, if you know yourself, you can start building those strategies that work for you. Don't accept the rules, and don't accept what you think is sort of the status quo of the way things have to be. Once you know yourself, you can, rebuild those rules and rebuild strategies that, support you and who you are. But again, you got to know yourself. That creates authenticity. But I think before you create your strategy, you got to know what you're good at, and you got to know where, you got to steer clear and not try to be something that you're not.
I mean, I think that's such a powerful insight. Something I've learned the hard way. We've actually seen in CMX, the majority of our members are introverted. It's like a slight majority, like 60-40, something close to that. But you'd expect community builders to all be extroverted.
Right.
To the extent we actually added an introvert zone to our conferences.
I like it. That's awesome.
They have our dedicated space. It's called the Awkward Conversation Zone.
I love it. It's funny though, like those types of people, like what makes them so great is that they're not leading the conversation, right? I think what makes introverts such great community builders is the fact that like they shut up and listen to other people, right? There's so much great opportunity to be had by just asking a couple really good questions and then just getting all that data and knowing how to connect the dots. Because if you're a great community builder, when you have really good information about people, you know how to help them, you know who to connect them with, you know what resources they need. And that is the first step in being a great connector, is just listening to people instead of trying to always lead the conversation. Ask good questions, shut up, listen, get the data, and then do what you do naturally, which is so good at, you're so good at from being a community builder.
I mean, it's so important what you're saying of understanding who you are and where your strengths are and the kind of community builder you want to be. And I think that applies to community building. I think that applies to leadership and everything, right? Like, we're both CEOs, and being a CEO, like understanding what kind of leader you are. Are you the one that needs to be on the front? Or are you more of the operations? We've seen that with community professionals. Some are more of like the kind of evangelists, want to be out there kind of advocating, very vocal, be like their face is very seen. And then there are ones that like to be more of kind of handling the operations. So a couple kind of like connected questions for you. Are there, through the research you did for the book and through your experience building communities and community teams, are there, how would you define like the buckets of different types of community builders? And then how do you apply that to when you build a community team? What are the buckets that you look for, and how do you create that balance?
First and foremost, I think for the community company, it's important to us that everyone sees themselves as a community builder, from the CEO down to, our tech team, to our customer support team, and everyone in between, because we are, of course, building community as a business. And, that is sort of everyone's first job, is to be a community builder and to understand that no matter what job you do, if you understand community better, you'll do your job better, because you'll be thinking through that lens that we want you to be thinking out of. So at the end of the day, I mean, everyone that I interview, everyone that my team interviews for a job at the company, we're thinking about how they fit in the company through the community builder's lens, and making sure that they are someone who values community the way that we do. That is sort of at its core. In the book, we talk about several different types of connectors. We talk about visionary connectors, who are kind of like the people that come up with these big ideas for bringing groups of people together and making connections happen. We talk about connection executors, who are really sort of on the other end of the spectrum and are more behind the scenes, kind of, figuring out how to make that happen, really focused on the operational stuff behind the scenes, and are more thoughtful in that way. And I think that's important to have a bunch of different individuals like that on a team in order to make it work. One of the things for me in writing this book that was just a great moment of just reminding me of how lucky I am to have Scott as a co-founder, is that we think so different about how we do things, but even though we both value community in the same way, you know, he is just so much more focused on that vision and really is forward facing in that way and enjoys that and thrives in it, while I am sort of more behind the scenes, operational, really thoughtful, you know, taking the ideas and actually distilling them down into, you know, actionable items that are going to work, building systems and processes so that works. And it takes a little bit of all of that in order to make a good community function. I think, you know, in our space, you know, you probably see this too, but I see a lot of really great communities fail because they don't have enough dimension in the leadership, you know, enough of those various skill sets and either to make it actually work. Oftentimes it tends to be, just from my experience, a lot of really great execution and thoughtfulness, but not enough vision and not enough focus on actually making it something that could be more than just a community, but have business potential and business outcomes that make it sustainable. So it's really important to invest into that, like the team that you have around you, and make sure that you have a lot of people with different skill sets. You know, I've always been drawn towards people that in a way make me uncomfortable, you know, and make me think outside the box and challenge myself, but also bring something to the table that I don't have. That's what I have with Scott. That's what I had with Penelope prior with Brazen Careerist. And I think that more community builders should be sort of helping themselves by putting themselves in positions to work with more people that make them feel uncomfortable and make them feel a little bit out of their comfort zone, that will challenge them and make them better, and ultimately help their communities be better too.
So you were highly active in kind of managing the communities early on with the YEC, and now you have it kind of set up more as a system where, you know, you're launching a company for a community for a company. So what is like the balance of the community team? Like, say when you launch the Forbes Council, or if you were to launch a community tomorrow, what's the mix of talent that you look for to put in place to run and lead a community?
Sure. So, you know, first and foremost, there's a lot that goes into launching a new community. We have a checklist that, you know, it's miles long. You know, we try to operate in a lot of ways like a software team. You know, we use, you know, a lot of the same products that software teams use to just kind of document and build new communities. We use Atlassian software. We use Confluence to document systems and processes and to assign tasks out to various team members. We use Jira for project management. And we're really thinking, you know, about things from a very system and process oriented place that's similar to software type of team. Beyond that, you know, we've got multiple different touch points that are involved in one of our communities, right? First and foremost, is this a community that we're building that we're going to actively plug our sales team into and go out and sell? Or is this sort of like a managed service type of partnership where we're going to work with a brand that's going to pay us to run it for them, and they already have some semblance of community in whatever nebulous form it might be? So that might be a component. We plug in the sales team. We have a customer support team who really is like the day-to-day kind of hands-on group that's taking care of the community. Our customer success team and our concierge team, who's really just, you know, they know our systems and processes for answering any FAQ that one of the members would have. And they're taking care of that through text messages. They're taking care of that through live chat, email, phone calls. We've got a hotline for members to call if they have problems that need to be addressed. And then we have our operations team who works under me to kind of make sure that, you know, the systems and processes continue to work and continue to adapt as we, you know, get smarter and smarter. We've got our software team that's deciding, okay, based on this community you're launching, you need this feature, and this feature, you know, flip that switch, put on the branding, make sure everything is working. And then, you know, the rest of the team can do what they do to make sure that the technology is supporting that community. And yeah, I mean, that's really it. You know, we've got a bunch of teams. They're all working on different things, but all understand very keenly what it is that each of them does. You know, it's a very cohesive type of team, and it has to be, you know, because we really need to know how we're all contributing to, you know, that vision of making this community possible. And communication is also key. You know, we don't work in silos. We're very, we're not top-down communication style. We have open communications day in and day out with 75 plus people on our team over Slack and through, you know, just team meetings to go through new campaigns and new, you know, new services that we're offering and new ideas that we have. And we talk through pain points together to make sure that, you know, we're always looking for ways to fix those tiny little things that can make a community better. You know, I've found that it's so rare that it's that big, sexy new product that's going to make the difference and make a community better. It's like these little itty bitty things that the person on the ground in the trenches working on your community every single day knows about. And if they're not empowered to speak up about these challenges, they're never going to get fixed, and you're never going to get those big wins in terms of, you know, making small changes that have big impact on retention.
Yeah, one thing that I'm kind of picking up on too, and I've noticed you've done a really good job of in the communities you build, is that like the space where people interact is part of it, right? It's that's what it's part of the value you create, but you really create this whole ecosystem of value that you try to give members. And it's probably something that's a little more prominent in membership communities or paid communities because they're paying, you want to make sure they get a lot of value.
Sure.
But like in the YEC too, like you have concierge services, you have all these benefits, you have opportunities to get your members press. You have all these different things that you're offering in addition to like, you're going to get to know each other. We're going to connect you with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like, you know, when you're in today's world where making connections is ultimately free, if you don't want to, you know, pay premium for curation and some of the extras, you know, it's important to have some carrots that kind of get people, you know, excited about what you have to offer and differentiate yourselves from other groups. You know, I think like right now we're at this point where we're going to start seeing, I think, like a renaissance in terms of how professional associations work. A lot of them are going to die off that have been around for decades and done amazing things that haven't been able to adapt. And a select few are going to break through, you know, figure out how to differentiate and bring new services in the market for their communities, figure out how to use technology that they're already using to connect versus trying to get them on their own platforms. And it ultimately become stronger businesses before it. I think people right now, with all the noise, are willing to pay a premium for curation and for access to some of these things that they'd otherwise have to work hard for, or really, you know, try to filter through a lot of garbage in order to find. And I'm excited for that because that's the industry that we're in. And there's so many organizations that have been around for decades that do really great work, but, you know, are in need for some innovation. And I can't wait to see what happens. It's going to be interesting.
I think everything's absolutely changing now. And yeah, this community in general, as well as like professional associations, it's all shifting.
Yeah.
Awesome. Real quick reminder for those of you who are joining, we're about the halfway mark. Tweet out any of the insights, any of the wisdom that Ryan is sharing here with the hashtag Superconnector, and we're going to give away 5 of those books to
Superconnector books.
Superconnector books.
I'm going to sign them for you guys too.
Oh, he's got a very pretty signature.
Thank you.
He'll send you a plaid shirt as well.
I will. Yep.
Yeah, he sent me this.
Something from my dirty laundry bin.
Cool. So I want to dive into some of that a little more deeply and get into some of the more value and tactic stuff now too. So a couple of questions that came up for me as you're talking through that. One thing is I've developed an understanding or an awareness that people tend to come to a company or membership or something for a value that is promised, and then they end up sticking around for the community.
Yeah.
But the community isn't often a great selling point. Like they don't come hoping to make friends and like they're paying for, but that's what ends up keeping them there. Do you find that as you're acquiring new members of your community, that the community and connection is a big selling point, or what is the thing that brings them in, and what's the thing that keeps them there?
Yeah, there are the people that get it, the power of curating the right people together, and there are people that don't, who are skeptical, and they're probably skeptical for a good reason, because they've been part of a chamber of commerce or one of those associations we talked about that's in need of an upgrade, or some other group that just didn't live up to the expectations. And that's where those, carrots come into play to really, drive people to see that your group is offering something different, and that, all right, even if the community aspect sucks, there's still this tangible thing that I'm going to get that makes it worth my money. So we absolutely see that happens with a lot of our communities. And you're right. I think, oftentimes it takes, a year of being involved for someone to see value and to make those friendships, and to, recognize that they have had ROI through connecting with these great people. I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, I'll be the first person to tell one of our members and one of our new customers that this is not something that you're going to get direct ROI from tomorrow. That's not what it's about. There's no 8-minute abs formula to building connections. This stuff takes time. I mean, some of my best connections that I can think back to that I've made through communities that I've been a part of haven't, yielded any, real bounty for me for months, sometimes years. But it's through those forums where, there's more of a private curated group that's invite only. And that there's been some thought into who's in the room, where you can build that trust faster and let your guard down and be a little bit more vulnerable than you might be willing to be on an open Facebook or LinkedIn platform or another open forum somewhere on the web. So it's really powerful, but oftentimes you need something more to get people in the door and make it so they're willing to take that risk, and that there's some other ROI attached to it to make sure that they're willing to take that leap of faith and invest into joining your organization.
Absolutely. Is there on like the business side? So like, what is the value to the business? Like, how do you see the business value of these communities to Forbes, Men's Health, any of the companies you're working with? And
Sure.
And what is the timeline that you communicate to them that like sets the expectation that, hey, this isn't gonna churn out revenue or ROI in a month? What is the amount of time that you say, like, okay, ask us in this amount of time and we should be able to show you results?
Yeah, it can take several months to really nail down our pitch, to find the right niche audience, and to make sure that they're interested in the product and buying. So you definitely you can't set the expectations that like 30 days in you're going to see all of this business ROI from community. It takes time. I think 6 months to a year is a good time to do your first check-in, and do them perhaps quarterly or biannually after that, to make sure that your partner is kind of informed on what's working and what's not, and areas that they can help. Going back to the other question, why is this something that's valuable to organizations that we work with? For the media side, I think right now things are more chaotic than they've ever been in that industry, and they still have very captive audiences that believe in them and trust in them. And if they don't invest in something more than just advertising and increasing subscriber counts, if that's the model, like, they're not going to have the ROI they need to sustain. And I think community offers an opportunity to further invest and build a more tangible, long-lasting relationship with readers and with people who they've built trust with in a way that they've never done before. I think community building is, in a lot of ways, the new customer service, right? It's about taking a relationships that you once had with a customer, a stakeholder, a fan, whatever it might be, and turning it into something more meaningful, less transactional, and more about supporting them and helping them, knowing that if you become a part of their life and be like, you're like their resource, they're top of mind. For example, if you're an executive and you join a Forbes council, if Forbes becomes the first top of mind resource the next time you have a business challenge that an executive is going to face and you come to us. That's great for Forbes, because Forbes has become, a resource that they will go to immediately when they need help, not just to read an article, but to literally connect with someone that can help them solve a problem that they're having right now. It also helps them become a part of the conversation more than they ever could. And that's also important. That takes us beyond just, the media landscape and into some of our other partnerships that we're starting to create with service-based organizations, technology companies, any organization that has a customer base and has a content strategy or has a customer support strategy is an organization that we want to work with because we can make it better. They need to own the conversation. They need to be able to provide more than just the baseline products and services that keep a customer happy, become a part of their life. If you're HubSpot, you're not just selling, a CRM, you're selling like being part of an ecosystem for anything that you need support on, involving sales and marketing. That's what they've done so well. They've built one of the best communities of sales and marketing professionals that I've ever seen. And they've done it through a combination of, doing more for their customers than providing customer support in a piece of software. They've built a second to none conference that connects them to top tastemakers. They've built content strategies that allow, their customers to be empowered to provide advice and to speak up on what's working and what's not through various blogs and other channels they've created. They've created communities, various communities that you can be a part of to learn from one another. And these communities are not just giving advice that leads back to a HubSpot product. They're giving advice that leads to them becoming more successful as a whole with what they're trying to do. And then knowing that ultimately building that trust is going to keep them loyal and keep them engaged and build that lifetime value that everyone is looking to retain, through doing more of just focusing on giving versus, what you can get in terms of returns from subscriptions and otherwise.
So on like lifetime value and all the metrics or all the values you're describing, what are the metrics that you report on to these companies, and how frequently do you report on them?
It depends on the organization. So, we do several types of partnership. We do joint venture deals where we are very involved in actually going out, recruiting and selling people to become members of communities. We also do managed service type deals where we will actually get paid almost like on a per seat basis by the brand themselves. They already have some semblance of community. They already know that they have a platform that works, but they're having trouble engaging or retaining the people that are there. We come.
All your communities are paid as well, right?
No. I mean, the Forbes councils, membership dues, Men's Health, some other ones are more of the joint venture style deals where we are focused on selling. We're doing a lot more now that is just focused again on like communities where the brand already has an audience and they might be a customer, but they want to do more for them. They want to be, really ingrained in their daily life. They want to be like top of mind for everything they need, in ways that go beyond just the products and services that they offer. For those types, focusing on the latter, the managed service type, we're looking at overall engagement and overall use of the, products and services that we provide them, engagement on our forums, engagement through our content platforms. We do a lot of contributor network models now, building basically thought leadership amongst customer bases to help, brands turn customers into creators of content for their blogs, for their media properties. Basically keeping track of all of that is incredibly important for us. And then matching that up with how well they're retaining on the business side to see whether or not the ROI that we're doing and what we're investing in is actually, making sense. When you talk about the joint venture stuff, we're very focused, of course, on engagement and making sure that the community members are happy. But the sort of metrics that we report on in that scenario are a lot easier. We're looking at new sales and we're looking at retention, and we're looking at the different new products and services and engagement strategies that we're plugging in year over year to determine how those things are impacting retention in a positive or a negative way. It's always, I mean, I always say, like, it's so much easier to know what your metrics are and your KPIs are if you're a community that has a business, you know, like that is actually making money, because you know that new sales and retention are your two biggest things. And then you can, you know, figure out how to reverse engineer everything else. When you don't have that, it's so very difficult to figure out whether or not a community is working. I'm not saying it's impossible. And certainly we report on these numbers all the time, but it's almost like more enjoyable when you know, okay, you know, I retained this amount, this many people churned, because like you really have like a solid way of knowing just right off the bat of how well you're doing.
Yeah, community-centric businesses are easy because your business is the community. So your membership is directly tied to revenue and retention.
Yeah. I wouldn't say they're easy, but like I would say that like it's easy to know if you're doing a good job. Because you know that you're making sales and you're retaining people, or you're not making sales and you're churning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and the way we look at businesses is they are communities. And so, you know, the same way you would treat your employees because you want them to be productive and stick around, your customers, your members, they're also people that you want to be happy and efficient and to stick around. And so the same way you create optimizations for your employees for them to be more effective, and you throw parties for them so they're generally happy. It's just things that you should do because you recognize that it will drive that long-term, that lifetime value and retention. Tracking it can be really hard if it's not tied to specific revenue. I did see there was just a thing on LinkedIn though that was published that employee satisfaction is directly correlated to to a customer retention. So it's like a direct correlation of 0.47.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? I mean, if you feel like you're doing a good job, you're going to like your job. I mean, and that's one of the things I pitch when we have community managers potentially joining the team is, you know, you will have very solid metrics on day one because we have established a business around our communities, and we know how we're doing. We know when we're doing a good job together. We know when we're not, and we're able to correct those things and work on them together versus some of the more nebulous metrics that go along with, you know, just running a Facebook forum or you know, running a community that's more of like a free type of tool that goes along with, you know, other products or services that you run. It's more difficult to know whether or not you're successful in that world.
I think we're going to have to do another call and just spend the entire time on like working through the business value of this stuff. Cause I know we've had these conversations in private and we've both seen it evolve over 10 years. I think like the direction businesses are going in is interesting with collaborative consumption, crypto, and they're basically businesses itself are becoming more decentralized and community centric. And so it's possible that these questions just disappear because it's not going to be the Nike being like, how do I sell my shoes? It's going to be the future version of Nike that's like, how do we motivate all these people to contribute to developing our shoes and promoting our shoes and rewarding them? And it is starting to be seen as the ecosystem that we've always talked about.
Yeah, exactly. Or Nike will be thinking about how do we help people become more physically fit, you know, and through that know that like when it's time for them to buy the next pair of shoes, the next piece of apparel that they need in order to do that, Nike will be top of mind, and that's going to be the group that they go and purchase from.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have to cut myself off because we have some amazing questions here, and I want to make sure to get to them. So let's do about 10 minutes of Q&A. So I'm going to hold you to be concise in your answers as much as possible.
Don't let me ramble too much, man.
I'll
do that sometimes.
It's all good. Your answers have all been extremely helpful, and I don't think they were rambly, but I'm going to make you get really focused. I started an improv class recently, and we did an exercise yesterday where you do a 1 minute skit, and then he says, okay, now do that 1 minute skit, but you have 30 seconds. And then, and then he does 15 seconds and then 8 seconds and 4, then 2 than 1 second. And it just like forced us to get to the essence of what it is you're trying to communicate. And so I'll give you the 30-second version. Okay.
Train me, a wise one. I'm ready.
I'm an improv expert after my 3 classes I've taken. Okay. So this one's from Jennifer, who you may know, Jennifer DeSimone.
All right, there we go.
What happens when your community grows so fast that you no longer know 90% of the people in it, and it becomes harder for you to personally know someone, and thus harder to connect the right people to others?
I find that to be the most difficult thing about being a leader in a growing company, period. And it's especially hard when you care about your community. It's sort of giving up that control and giving it over to someone else. But I think the most important thing is, first and foremost, that you pull yourself out of your own ass and let it happen, because that is something that every single leader on the planet has struggled with. And it's also just about training your teams and making sure that from that foundational level, when they first join you, that you are training them not just on the skills that they need to perform their jobs, but on your values and who you are and how you present yourself to the community. Because if you do that from day one day they're going to be able to take over for you and do the same job the way you expect them to do it. When you find that you're, capable and comfortable of pulling yourself away so you can be a better leader and focus on the big picture.
Yeah, and there's probably like tools wise as well. I think like you guys do a pretty good job of kind of managing different technologies that help you keep track of everyone in an efficient way.
Data, systems, processes.
We're awful. We've been awful at it. We're finally getting our shit together there. But like, having those processes and the right data systems so that if someone says, I need to connect with someone in the finance industry, you're not relying on this CRM because this one.
But let's also be real for a minute, because I think some people get so caught up in, oh shit, big data. How am I going to do that? Like, there are so many ways to just track things that do not require you to make big investments. Like, don't make this problem bigger than it has to be. Like, all of us have Frankenstein style, like, systems and processes and technologies using Zapier and other tools behind the scenes. Like, that is par for the course in our world. And don't think so big that it, prevents you from executing today on what you need to get done to grow your business.
I'm so guilty of that. So I appreciate that advice. Awesome. Jeremy Koser said, can you talk about empathy and its role in development and the growth of conscious business practices?
Yeah. Geez, that's a loaded fucking question. I mean, look, at the end of the day,
it's a big one, right? I think like the essence of it is it's not just about building a community that in itself is healthy and connected, but like what is the impact that community and the culture of that community has outwardly?
I think, again, like it's about how you set the framework and the foundation for your community and for the team that you have around you that's helping build the community. If they know that you care about making a positive impact in a specific area, and that is a part of the foundation, and you really invest in that message, people are going to get behind you, and you are going to find people that believe and care about that too. So I mean, I think like it's really on you as a leader to spread that message and make sure that other people, buy into the value of what you're trying to create. I think most people inherently want to do good, but unless they're educated on how, we just fall back into bad habits. So it really is just about setting that strong foundation for your community on day one.
I would agree with that. I think the example you set and the way you encourage your members to treat each other can translate to how they treat people outside the community as well. And so
nipping those bad behaviors in the bud, I think like, don't be afraid to call someone out privately, but like let them know that they've broken a rule. 9 times out of 10, people are not pissed off by that. They're just like, oh shit, sorry, I didn't know. I'll never do that again. And from there on out, they're great members. They know what to do, and more importantly, they know what not to do.
Yeah. And I would say publicly is really good sometimes too. I just had to do this week where someone was, trying to kind of be funny and just make jokes, but they were being insulting to another member. And I just deleted that last comment. I was just like, this joke was an insult. That's not allowed here. And by doing it publicly, sometimes it sets that example and shows the rest of your community that you are there and you are moderating and you
It's a really good point. It's good. It's a good reminder that, you know, behind the scenes, there are people that are looking out and making sure that the ecosystem that you've created is one of positivity and goodwill and no bullshit.
Absolutely. Awesome. Kind of related here. Edward Garza said, how do you deal with the community members that sometimes throw FUD, which is fear, what were the other ones? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt is FUD. I don't know if you it's very big in the crypto community space because people.
Gotcha. That's why I don't know what it is, because I'm scared to death of the crypto communities.
Yeah, so FUD is when members come and they fear, uncertainty, and doubt. They try to like undermine the mission or the vision or like convince members that like this isn't something to invest in or you should be afraid of it. Which you can translate to any community for the people who come in and really just try to like tear down the existing community or make existing members less like lose their faith in the community or not invest in it as much.
Yeah, sure. I think focusing
on that.
Yeah, a lot of what we talked about before, but take it a step further, you know, investing in a strategy to embrace and support and empower your anchor members, people who are really like those folks who believe in you and are always going to be there. You know, instead of you having to deal with someone who's, you know, creating the FUD, it's better to have, you know, someone who's not the leader of the community come in and sort of stand up for it and provide some positivity and some
Definitely.
Some really great examples of why it does work. Oftentimes, like if you or a member of your team step in, it ends up, you know, even if you do a great job of being totally ambassador-like and, you know, trying to just diffuse the situation, you just get seen as defensive no matter what. So getting other people to kind of, you know, stand up for you and that just truly believe in the value of what you're doing can be incredibly powerful.
That well said. I think like my proudest moments are when somebody does something in the group that's not okay, and then other people step up and they're like, "Hey, that's not why we're here." And I'm like, "Oh, yes."
Right. Yeah, and it's all about your anchors, man. I think those people are incredibly, incredibly important to invest in. They're going to just, you know, the investment you put into them will pay off in dividends later.
I mean, I love that that term. I haven't heard that, anchor members, and I talk a lot about that with like founding members when you're starting a community. But throughout a community, you have anchor members or like your core members who are really invested. Do you ever would you like personally reach out to those anchor members and be like, "Hey, would you mind jumping in here?" Or do you just like
sometimes you get to have that magical moment like you were just talking about where they just do it for you and like that really feels good. But, you know, I don't ever fear, you know, because of those investments, right? It's never awkward for me to ask such a favor. And again, it goes back to like Superconnector. Oh, it's my kids. Okay, I'll be down in a minute. You know, because we have those anchor members that I'll be right down. Okay, I'll be right down.
The boss is calling.
Yeah, I know, my bosses. So yeah, getting back to that, like when I mean investing in them, I mean like really getting to know them, being like very close to them and having a relationship where like you could pick up the phone and talk to them about something. That will make it so that if you ever run into these situations, you really like will be able to count on people to support you when you need it. That's incredibly, incredibly important. Not just sending them swag, like knowing like their birthdays, you know, like something like legit, like that really makes them feel important.
Do they know that they're anchor members? Do you say like, "Hey, like, is it like an official?"
No, I don't. It's not. It's definitely just buzzwordy kind of like behind the scenes jargon we use in our business. But like they know they're important. They know that they are special. And I think that it's important that they know that. You could call them anchors, call them founding members. You could have an official title, or you can just be off the cuff, just honest and saying like, look, you are really important to the community. I want to make sure we have like a trusted relationship, because I know that, you know, your investment has really impacted us, and I want to make sure that we can give that back to you tenfold. But I also know that there's going to be times where like you could be in a strong position to help us. So let's get to know each other. Let's go out for a beer. Let's set up conversations. Let's let's really understand like what makes each other tick. So we can be more than just, you know, fringe connections through a community with mutual interests.
Absolutely. And that takes so much weight off the community manager's shoulders, because they know they have a little bit of a support system around them. It's not just like them and the community.
Right.
Cool. And then last question from the community here. Katie Paffhouse asked a tactical question. She asked, can you tell us about a connection instance or project you worked on that was a risk and it worked out? She said, I love those. So you say there is a chance moments.
Good question. You know, we've built over a dozen Forbes Council's communities, and some worked, some didn't work. And we've taken risks on communities that we weren't sure were possible. One of them that we did over the last year was a community for people in the real estate industry. And we were really scared about that because we didn't actually know that much about the real estate industry, but we knew that there was a lot of people online, a lot of people getting bad information, promoting themselves in very bad, poor ways, using just bad networking practices like the stuff we talk about in Superconnector. And we wanted to help them come together and build community, but we didn't know the first damn thing about how to do it. So we invested a lot of time into market research, getting to know them, getting to understand what they would pay for and what they wouldn't pay for, and to just understand what makes them tick. And that, I think, led to a meaningful community. It's one of the communities in our Forbes portfolio that is growing the fastest right now and has one of the most engaged forums of all the councils, because we really invested in figuring out what their challenges are and how we can maybe bring together a group of people that were going to help solve some of those big questions that they had. So that one I'm really proud of. And I chalk it up to just good research being done, not just diving in head first, but actually like talking to some people and really getting to know the group before we just made assumptions. We've definitely dived in head first without doing that, research. And sometimes we got lucky, but we've definitely had some doozies that didn't work out, where we wish that we would have done a little bit more diligence up front to know what we were getting ourselves into.
Yeah, but I would add to that. That was a great example. Just like the ability to experiment and be comfortable with failure is something that's so important for community builders, and just like try it and see if it works, and just if it works, keep doing it. If it doesn't, try something else, and just get, own that failure.
Oh yeah. We failed a number of times, and it's, it's just learning opportunities, and we've grown from it.
Yes, that's how you grow. You fail.
You
and I have done many of those.
Many of
that. Okay, so we're going to wrap up here with some rapid fire questions. Last reminder, if you want a free Superconnector book signed by Ryan, sent to you in the mail, tweet out an insight from this chat, #Superconnector. And if you're interested in trying CMX Pro out and becoming a member of our community, go to cmxhub.com/pro, apply, and mention that you came to this webinar, and you'll get the first month for $5, assuming you are approved. But if you're a community professional, we just make sure you're legit. Cool. And so we're going to wrap up here. Quick rapid fire questions. Is there a book or blog, or what's one resource you recommend the community check out to learn more about community or anything?
That's awesome. I was just about to do a LinkedIn video for this. So follow me on LinkedIn, and I'll follow up on this. But I was going to share in my next video, like a book called Lessons in Excellence, which is about Charlie Trotter, famous restaurateur out of Chicago, who just did this amazing job at building like an experience that was unforgettable. And I feel like for me, I often learn more from just these industries that are outside of our own about community building than I do reading about just community building. So that's a book that I really, really love to read and go back to. And I actually buy for new members of my team just to kind of give them an idea about, like, again, what's important to me, what do I value, and what do I want to see them sort of become through being a part of our organization. So Lessons in Excellence from Charlie Trotter. It's just like, it's a book about building a restaurant. And it's just so good at teaching how to be a great concierge and how to build a great experience.
I'm going to read that. Thank you for sharing. 2, is there another community that is really inspiring to you that you think is doing a really good job right now?
Well, I love what you're doing. I live and breathe the CMX stuff. I always love seeing the conversations. Other communities that I love. There's a guy named Jason Gagnard who is in our book. He runs a community called Mastermind Talks. He does these private events that you have to be invited to attend and go through an application process in order to be a part of. He is just incredible at building community. I learned a lot from him and the experiences that he's created for the people that come to his events. He also has a great podcast called Community Made, which I recommend checking out.
Amazing. Great examples. They're asking again for the name of the book. That's Lessons in Excellence by Charlie Trotter.
Lessons in Excellence from Charlie Trotter. It's written by someone else, but Charlie Trotter he's not
from Charlie by Paul Clark.
Clark. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, but just great restaurateur, a lot of great advice. Hope you guys like it.
Awesome. I know we're just over time here. Couple quick ones. What's one tactic that anybody who's building community can try in their community to, stoke engagement that's worked for you in the past? A piece of content, something fun.
I mean, like, I love just going to people that don't contribute and helping them write posts. Like, I will literally, there are like people in our communities that are just the lurkers that I will go out and purposefully find and just borderline harass until I can get them to share a challenge with me that I can help them figure out how to turn into a post that will ultimately get back really, really great feedback and really awesome goodwill from the community. I think a lot of people want to participate, but they just don't know how. And it might seem like second nature to us, but taking that sort of extra step to do something so unscalable that you go out to these people and help them, be vulnerable by writing something that they don't know how to write could just have massive impact. There's only so much that you can say and you can do that comes from the leader. When you get someone else to participate, I think that's 10 times more impactful than anything that you could possibly say.
I love that. And that might be your answer to the last question. But if you could take all of your lessons and understandings and failures and everything in community and distill it down into a core message or core lesson, Twitter style length, what's the one thing that you want to pass on to community builders that they should apply to their work in their life?
Yeah. What you do is valuable. People should pay you to do it. And don't be afraid to charge for the value that you bring to the world. I think that now more than ever, you guys are empowered in a big way to make a big impact in organizations. They're starting to get it. And now is the time to step up and realize that you are worth a hell of a lot more than, you probably think you are. And just, have a bit of a chip on your shoulder. You guys do great work. And oftentimes I think we need to believe in ourselves more and have more faith and more just, pride in what it is that we do. So hope that helps.
Hell yes. They can't see my face, but I'm nodding and grinning. I think that's an incredible message and aligns very well with our message at CMX. So awesome. Ryan, thank you so much for your time today, for sharing all your wisdom. Superconnectorbook.com for any of you who want to go purchase his book. Even if you get the free one, go buy one and give it to a friend. It's definitely something that every community builder should own. Anywhere else that people should go to check you out? I know you're at Ryan Paugh on Twitter.
Yeah, Ryan Paugh on Twitter. If you want to check out what the community company does, community.co. If you want to learn more about the book and download a free chapter, superconnectorbook.com. That's it. I'm really easy to find online. So if you have any questions, you want to, follow up afterwards, I'm always just happy and thrilled to just nerd out on other people's communities. So consider me a resource.
Oh, yes. Thanks so much, Ryan. We'll do this again very soon.
All right, man. Sounds good.
Or go hang out with your kids.
Thanks. Bye.
See you soon.